What's going on, everybody? This is Mr. J Honcho, and I just wanted to share my story on how I got started as a software developer. And it's been a interesting, interesting journey, right? It's just been an interesting journey. So I'm gonna share with you this, right? It was not an overnight thing, and it wasn't no. How can I say this? 2 weeks thing. So take you back. This is probably about, well, first, my background, I have a bachelor's degree in computer information science. So in college, this is probably around, I want to say like 2000. I graduated in 2006. So in between that time, or when I was in college, I got exposed to the language of C++. And at that time, and I'm looking back now, like, why they didn't tell me before or at that time? But I guess the time was different then. It wasn't a lot of web applications and in a lot of these frameworks now. But back then, when I was doing C++, I never really understood, like, why do we even use this? Because all of our assignments was mainly like uh, they were all like random, make this number do this, sort this by that, or make first in, last out type of thing. And I'm like, what is this used for? Who needs this? So when I was going through that process, I did okay. And so it just gave me the foundation of mainly like the data structure and like a lot of different, you know, different different types of programming terminologies and getting my foot in the door as far as getting to know more of that field, right? So after I graduate, I really didn't think about getting coding or whatever, but coding into coding, but I was more thinking that I would have to do more IT work, which would be like help desk or something like that. So I did go that route, and that didn't last long because after going through that is just the type of job and dealing with the time frame where you have to answer a certain question and someone has to be on, like, you're on the phone and they're waiting on you while you're talking to like three different people at the same time and you're chatting with that person. I mean, it was too much to me. It felt like for one person. So that didn't last long. So this was probably back in like 2009, and then I did a few other jobs that wasn't tech related, and then I was able to get hired in and work for a company that I mainly would become like a application administrator, and that was the first like real technical job that I had, and that was probably like, I want to say that was in 2012, 2012, and around that time, so I was able to get my hands on. I also did learn a SQL database when I was in college. So that was the first job that I actually had to use what I learned in college. So I had to do a lot of digging and get some of that, get used to it again, even though I knew it was still kind of familiar anyway, because the language, it really, like the syntax and everything, I knew like the basics, but I was able to pick up on it real quickly. So then I was at that job probably for, I want to say, it might have been about 5 years, 4 or 5 years I was there, and I got a chance to learn more about application servers and also just mainly the database side as well. Database uptime, testing, load testing, and all that stuff. So I was able to touch on that application server. So then I transitioned into more of a technical support engineer role where I was mainly doing, this was the craziest job ever. I'm gonna tell you right now. I was mainly doing, okay, I was on the phone. No, take it back. I was on the chat with, it can be up to like two people at the same time. A phone call, somebody can call, and I'll have to pick up the phone and talk to that person while I'm still on the chat. Yeah. So sometimes I was on three chats in one phone call. Yeah. So that job was very interesting. So when I was at that job, I was learning. Mainly, I was learning because the job was mainly, I got more chance to learn at a faster pace because it was more things I had to work on at one time. But when I started that job, I want to say probably like a few months before then, I started the job within, I think it was like 2018, something around that time, where I started to learn like the basics of HTML and CSS and JavaScript. And what I did was I started to learn, I think I was on, someone mentioned to me about Team Treehouse. And so I went to Team Treehouse. It's a website where you can go and learn just the basics of programming language, uh, coding, mock-up languages. So I went there, I learned HTML, got familiar with that, and then I went to learn a little bit of CSS, and then learn some JavaScript from there as well. In all, in a few months, really, it took me probably I want to say a few months, probably like 6 months, really, because I was off and on. It wasn't like a consistent um, 5 hour, 4 hour days or whatever like that, because I felt like that was too much anyway. And my lifestyle, I couldn't just sit there and do all of that because I had a family. I was married. I'm still married, but at that time, it's like you can't just sit in a room. You gotta. I'm not the only one in there. So at that time, so that's about four. Yeah, it was about 6 months. I'm learning that. I'm off and on, and then from there, I went ahead and what else did I do? Oh, yeah. So Team Treehouse. Then I started to get courses on Udemy. It's another website where you can follow along courses and tutorials on just how to learn self-taught programming and doing more projects. So at that time, I was doing more projects and learning as I go and getting more familiar with the flow of the website, like mainly what is connected and how things are connected. How do you connect HTML to CSS? How do you connect JavaScript to your projects? And mainly that portion, and really the style of the website, how to make it more interactive, how to make it more user friendly, and make it look good too. But so that took probably, I want to say, like 6 months to do, and then I was introduced to some people. I started watching some more well, I got used to watching YouTube then at that time. So this was probably about a year going on. So it was probably going into like 2000 and I'm gonna say like 2019. About 2019, I was getting more familiar with YouTube, so I was looking at different channels on YouTube. I started subscribing to. Shout out to Joe. Joe, Coding Phase. Joe is the guy that really that I pretty much that I like as well from the ones that I've seen on YouTube because he really puts it in a way where he tells it like it is, but at the same time you're still learning from what you're trying to learn from him. But at the same time, it's not like it's not like what's that guy's name? I mean, the commercial like Dry Eyes, the guy with the glasses, and he's just reading from a. He I would say it like this: he's not like one of those people that's just boring and just sound like they live in their mama basement and that they just that's all they do and they don't have a life and they just coding and they got you know he's like a normal dude. I mean something like you can relate to. So that's why I appreciate Joe because he tells you like it is, and then I started listening to some of his content and got way more information from him than some of the other channels. So I just start listening to him, taking some of the advice that he's been given, and then I start to learn more about the whole like stack because before I was just mainly working on like the front end and what you would call like the web, pretty much like a web stack, or I mean it's so many stacks. I mean haystacks. I mean all kind of stacks. It's just too many stacks. Okay, but it's like HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. That's what I'm referring to. So I started then looking more into the backend languages like PHP and a little bit of yeah, mainly like PHP and a little bit of Java. And so from there, I got an opportunity to at this at that well all this time. I want to say a year passed or whatever, and then I got an opportunity to get more experience in like the front end because I was able to be pulled into a project where I was able to use my JavaScript skills that I learned online from various sources, and so I was able to build like a chatbot um, for the company that I was working with. So then I got more introduced to like APIs, which I really didn't know that much about at that time. So, like I said, I was just mainly going through like the front end, and I gradually got to the point where I was learning about APIs and learning how you use them. I mean, the what kind of requests you get from them, what's a good request, what's not a good request, like errors, testing them. So I got a chance to use that, and also I from that point it was like a I was coding a little bit, but at the same time I was using like the GUI interface and learning more about what was it? I think it was NLP. I think it's called MLP, but it's natural something language. I forgot what it was, but it's mainly like machine learning. So, and then it was a combination of that, and then it was using the GUI interface to create chatbots where it knows like pattern recognition and knowing like the phrases of certain words and how to categorize them to really just have a response to a question if someone doesn't actually click, or yeah, if they don't click on the option that you provide them, because customers, they don't follow like the flow of anything. So just provide them, just so the system won't just crash when the customer doesn't click on what it's supposed to click on. So learning that, and then after learning that process, I eventually got more comfortable in learning. So this would be close to like 2020. Yeah, so that was what, last year? Yeah, 2020. I got more comfortable with learning PHP, and then more comfortable with the database languages. And then from there, I picked up Java because I was just curious about what Java was. I heard people talking about it a lot. I haven't used it before when I was in school, but when I was in school, I heard a lot of people was just running from it because it was too hard to learn. But so I just picked up Java, really at the end of 2019, and then I learned Java on, it was an app called, I think it was Solo Learn. Yeah, I think it was Solo Learn, and so I went through and learned Java on Solo Learn, and then I went back on Solo Learn and also went through like the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript and on there. And then from there, I was, what else was on there? Yeah, so those are the main ones I was on there on Solo Learn that I learned. And then I went ahead and I got into um, I think it was another course that I took. I can't remember the name what the course it was, but mainly it was another job that came available. This was the crazy part though, right? So when a job came available, I mainly I just applied for it. I didn't think anything about it because I was when I was looking at certain people online, they would say when you have certain jobs, you just apply for them, and I mean you just apply for them because you can't really. It's not like it's a numbers game, so you have to go by the numbers. So then once I applied for a few jobs there, a few jobs here, were entry level jobs. They had like the name entry level in there, or junior level programming, or some kind of yeah, junior level or entry level was in the titles, but this job didn't, and I didn't think anything of it because it had so many different job listings or programming language listings on there, and all I really knew out of that list was a few, which was like I was still a little bit familiar with Java, but I was more familiar with like PHP. But so I went ahead and applied for the job, and to my surprise, they called me back. And I was like, what? I was like, okay, okay. So they called me back. So I went through the process and I let them know that, I mean, I'm more familiar with PHP, and I was just walking through the, just going through the interview and sharing my knowledge on certain things that I did, how it translates to really any programming language that you do. About 80% or 90% of it transfers to another language anyway. So I I realized, I mean, I went through that process. I pretty much talked through the interview, and I thought I did okay. So the interview was done, and then I got an email saying, hey, I'm glad we got a chance to interview you. So the next step, I was surprised I got to the next step. I was like, okay, they got me to the next step. So the next step, I had to do a code. It was like a code project, and I had a few days to get it done. So that was interesting because this is how I went. They wanted me to build an application using Java to really compare a few files and yeah, compare a few files. Like an application that you upload, that you have buttons to upload files in it, and then you run a comparison to see if the files match. If they do match, you have a result of match, and if they don't match, you have a result of don't match. So it took me longer than what I expected to even get close to what they were asking for. I really didn't finish everything because I was still working the other job, and the other job was taking a lot of time out of my time to work on this project because sometimes I have to work overtime, and other times, and when you get off of one job, that's mainly like computer driven, and that's mainly you're focused in. And mind you, I'm on the phone, and I got to talk to like two or three people at the same time through a chat. So thinking about that, you going through all that all day, and then you're trying to learn a new language or get more familiar with what you're trying to build. That was crazy. Like it was a challenge for me to get through that process. But when I say that, the crazy thing is when okay, so this is how it went. So when I did as much as I could with the application. I was able to get the buttons to upload a file and then scroll because they needed a scrolling feature so you can view the file. And then I was able to get the other option to display the result of the comparison, but at the bottom of the comparison, I I don't think I finished the rest of it because there was some kind of clearing I had to do, clearing the result and then starting over, and then it was another comparison part that I didn't get to. So I got like probably I want to say like 70% of the project I finished. So I just turned it in. And then a few days later, I got an email back and they were saying, well, we couldn't open the project. Can you resend it? And I'm like, okay, why they couldn't open the project? So I looked again, and then I sent the project in. I think I sent the project in Java files, and I didn't send the project in a zip folder. So I sent the project individual files because I didn't know. I mean, because that's the first time I ever sent files of Java over the internet, like to anybody. So I'm thinking, okay, I'm just sending like you send an attachment in an email. So then after I put in a zip file and then I sent it to him, and then a few days later I got another email back and they said, well, we're still not able to open the files after you unzip them. Can you just change the oh no, they said they couldn't open the files because the system is blocking it. So can you change the Java file to I think it was a note. So change the last part of the extension of that file to a different extension, and then they can change it back once they get it. So that's what I did. And mind you, this was going on for like, I want to say probably like a week and a half. I'm thinking like, man, they not gonna call me back because no, I take that back. I was like, this is real interesting. Why are they still wanting my files if I didn't even finish the project, right? Completely. And so the crazy thing popped in my mind. I was like, because I had two other jobs that I was waiting on an offer for. I had one that no, technically I already had one offer for the other job, and they were waiting on me to make a decision. And then this job was they was waiting on the files to get to me. So I was like, I wonder if they really are gonna hire me, because why would they send, or why would they spend time waiting for to receive the results of these files, and it's taking almost a week and a half to get to them, and then they gotta review it and then say yay or nay. So they finally got the files, probably like a week and a half, and then a few days later after that, I received an email, and they said that congratulations, we want to pretty much accept you for this offer, or provide you with this offer for this position. And I was like, what? I didn't know what to do. I was like, wow, wow. And when I think about it, like sometimes when you are new in development and you want to get into the field, like sometimes you don't have to know everything. Like really, you really don't know how to know everything. Mainly, it's mainly based off your willingness to learn, to grow, and show that you are willing to put in the work, and you have that personality that they're looking for, and also that